What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you the Cedar Point roller coasters ranked from worst to best. Number 17 is Wilderness Run. This is a pretty decent little kids coaster, but it's pretty small and mainly for the smaller kids, so that's why it is last place on this list. Number 16 is Woodstock Express. It's a pretty nice step up from Wilderness Run, but still a kids coaster, mainly for the younger kids. It's a pretty nice little ride. Number 15 is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. This is a classic coaster at Cedar Point. It's pretty old, not the smoothest, but a pretty solid coaster for the families and a good step up from Woodstock Express. Number 14 is Corkscrew. This is a classic coaster at Cedar Point, the first coaster to go upside down 3 times. It has a decent layout, the inversions are okay, but the smoothness is poor, and I would like to see an RMC T-Rex potentially replace this in the future. But overall, this is an okay coaster, not the best. Number 13 is Blue Streak. This is the only wooden coaster at Cedar Point and the oldest roller coaster in the park. It is an okay coaster, it has some airtime, and I will give it an edge over Corkscrew because it doesn't have over-the-shoulder restraints. And overall, it's a nice little coaster. Number 12 is Iron Dragon. This is a very unique and fun family suspended coaster. It may not be the smoothest coaster in the world, but it is a really unique ride. It goes over the water and through the trees. It is a very solid terrain coaster and very solid for the families. Number 11 is Gemini. This is a very solid coaster, especially when it's dueling, but it can be kind of boring when only one side is running. It feels more like a family coaster, but I highly recommend trying to get on this if it is available with both sides running. Number 10 is Vale Raven. This is a pretty decent dive coaster. It's not as smooth as the other B&M dive coasters, SheiKra and Griffin, but it has a pretty superior layout, and it is a pretty solid ride, especially if you have a big group of people with you. This is a really fun experience, but I'm not really the biggest fan of the vest restraints as they kill off some of the crazy airtime you get on that first drop, but overall, it is a pretty solid ride. Number 9 is Wicked Twister. This is a very fun and compact coaster along the beach. The launches, the intensity, and the vertical twists are very solid, and this is just a really fun ride at Cedar Point. I usually try and get on this a couple times when I go. This is just a really solid ride. Number 8 is Rugru. It is a pretty decent floorless coaster despite the stand-up coaster layout, and I highly recommend the front row for smoothness, the back row for more intensity, but overall this is a very smooth and very solid experience. Number 7 is Raptor. This is a very strong layout, B&M invert with high intensity, and I highly recommend the front row for smoothness, the back row for more intensity, just like Rugru, but I will give it the edge over Rugru because this coaster has a couple more inversions than Rugru. Just missing the top 5 at number 6 is Gatekeeper. This is a very awesome coaster, a very solid wing coaster. It has many inversions. It goes through keyhole towers. It's very picturesque by the beach and for being in the front of the park. And the hang time is pretty decent too. I really enjoy Gatekeeper. Just making it into the top 5 at number 5 is Magnum XL200. This is a classic aerodynamics hypercoaster, and it may not be the smoothest coaster in the world, but it's a very crazy ride with insane airtime moments, especially the second half where it has these very small triangular ejector airtime hills, and the tunnels also make this ride pretty insane. This coaster is very picturesque and an absolutely underrated, amazing ride. At number 4 is Top Thrill Dragster. This is an insane coaster. The launch is super intense, super smooth. Just this entire ride in general is just so smooth. And it's super fast, super exciting, but a very poor duration. Besides that, though, this coaster is so much fun, and it's one heck of an intense ride. At number 3 is Maverick. This is a really awesome coaster. It packs so much into its layout despite being not that tall whatsoever. And it's mainly low to the ground. It has some crazy turns, inversions, a couple airtime hills, and a very intense launch through a tunnel. This is a phenomenal coaster. At number 2 is Steel Vengeance. This is an absolute monster coaster. It has the size, speed, airtime, inversions, bank turns. It has some pretty drawn out elements at the start of the ride and closes with very rapid fire small elements with those crazy airtime hills at the end of the coaster. And this coaster is regarded by many as the best coaster in the world, but not for me. There's only a few coasters better than Steel Vengeance, and one of them is in this park. At number 1 is Millennium Force. This ride is turning into a classic due to being now over 20 years old, and it still retains very strong airtime, speed, and smoothness, and amazing bank turns. It interacts really well with the terrain. It has some really cool elements throughout the ride, and it's just my kind of ride. It has everything you want out of a roller coaster, and it's very re-rideable, assuming there's no line whatsoever for it. But anyway, that is all for this video. Those were my Cedar Point roller coasters from worst to best. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, stay tuned for more videos.